Folks, it's past 6 o'clock, and the October 9th, 2012 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
President Adair.
Here.
Mrs. Aldersley. Mr. Ansello. Ms. Andrews. Mr. Antelli. Mr. Barker. Mr. Baroff. Ms. Boyce is excused. Mr. Colby. Mr. Daniele. Mrs. Draw. Mr. Gamble. Mr. Gamina. Mr. Haney. Mr. Hanna. Mr. Howland. Ms. Kaylee. Mr. John Lightfoot. Mr. Willie Lightfoot is excused. Mr. McCann. Mr. Michike. Mr. O'Brien. Mr. Patterson. Dr. Quattro. Mr. Rocco. Mr. Tucciarello. Mrs. Valerio. Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Yolovich.
Legislator O'Brien. It's okay. Please stay, at this time, please stay seated. And I would like to introduce Sister Grace Miller from the House of Mercy, who's been invited tonight by Legislator Mike Patterson. Sister.
I've been invited to pray. I want us to put ourselves in the spirit of prayer before a God who loves us. The Lord calls us to do many difficult things in life, to make many difficult decisions and choices. The Lord calls us to do God's will on this earth. Our obligation is to listen to where God is calling us. The Spirit of God is within us, who gently whispers God's will and direction to us. As wisdom says, set your heart on what I have to say. Listen with a will, and you will be instructed. My prayer tonight is that all of us will be strong enough, daring enough, to truly listen in our hearts to where God is calling us, individually and as county legislators. So I would like all of us to place ourselves in the words of Scripture, especially in Exodus, where God calls Moses to free God's people who are suffering oppression, and then to the words of the prophet Isaiah in the Gospel of John, where we are told exactly what God demands of us. Today, God continues to speak to us through the words of Scripture. In Exodus, God disrupts Moses' life, calling him to do the seemingly impossible. God says to Moses, I have seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying for help on account of their taskmasters. Yes, I am well aware of their sufferings, and I have come down to rescue them from the clutches of the Egyptians. Yes, indeed, the Israelites' cry for help has reached me, and I have seen the cruel way in which the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now, Moses, I am sending you to Pharaoh for you to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Moses strongly objected. Who am I to go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? God said, go, Moses, I will be with you. Please, Lord, please send someone else. This task is too difficult for me. I can't even speak well. The Lord said, go, Moses, and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. As Moses was called by God to liberate the oppressed from their suffering, so are we called to do the same. We all know Pharaoh was obstinate, and as poor-tongued as Moses was, God gave him the victory, and the Israelites were freed from slavery, freed from the oppression of the one in the highest authority. All this in spite of the fact that it all seemed impossible. Then we turn to Isaiah, and these are the words of God through Isaiah. This rather is the fasting that I wish, releasing those bound unjustly, untying the thongs of the yoke, setting free the oppressed, breaking every yoke, sharing your bread with the hungry, sheltering the oppressed and the homeless, clothing the naked, and not turning your back on your own. Lord, we pray tonight that you will guide us to do your will, to hear your voice in the darkness, in the difficulties of our lives, to hear your voice when decisions are difficult for us to make. Give us the grace to go against popular opinion when we know in our hearts that it is not the way you want us to go. Lord, give us your heart to listen to the cries of the poor and to courageously respond to their needs. Help us to follow in your footsteps, in the footsteps of Moses, to be the prophetic voice of Isaiah today. Lord, grant us the courage to be your true followers. Help us to bring your comforting words into our hurting world. Help us to understand, Lord, that to exercise coercive power and mold the poor according to our plan is not your way. That we must exercise our leadership with truth, compassion, and integrity. Help us to see and to understand that when you, Jesus, walked this earth, you favored people over all requirements of the law. Lord, help us to understand that the whole radicality of your example on earth, as told us by John, was when you dared to get on your hands and feet and wash the feet of the apostles. You instructed them, do you understand what I just did for you? If I washed your feet, I who am your teacher and Lord, then you must wash each other's feet. What I just did was to give you an example. As I have done, so you must do. And Lord, this is it in a nutshell. As you have done, so must we do. There is no other way around this. This is the only way, and we must do it no matter how difficult. There is no easy way to follow you, Lord. There is no way out. That is, if we want to be your true followers. Lord, help us to hear your whisperings within us. We ask all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Sister Grace. Hang on now, I come down.
I get a certificate of recognition.
Yes, you do. Here, come here. You got to shake my hand. Yeah, there you go. There. Here you go. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Very good today. All right, be kind. Legislator Glenn Gamble will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Gamble. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I would like you to continue to stand. Without objection, I will take agenda item number 7 out of regular order. Agenda item number 7 is moved by Mr. Daniele. It is seconded by Mr. O'Brien and also seconded by Mrs. Draw. Will the clerk please read the resolution of memorial for the Army Sergeant First Class Daniel Metcalf?
Expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of Sergeant First Class Daniel Metcalf. Be it resolved that the Monroe County Legislature hereby expresses its deep sympathy at the recent passing of Daniel Metcalf, Sergeant First Class Soldier of the 173rd Airborne Division. And whereas Daniel was 29 years old and attended Penfield High School from 1997 to 2000, he joined the Army when he was 18. And whereas while serving his third tour of duty in Afghanistan, Daniel was killed by small arms fire when his unit was attacked while on patrol on Saturday, September 29th, 2012. And whereas Daniel was an 11-year Army veteran based in Vicenza, Italy, and was known in his unit for his outstanding leadership skills. And whereas Daniel will be greatly missed by his wife, Vesna, and their children, Alexis, age 6, Edward, age 3, and Nathaniel, 11 months old. Daniel is survived also by his father, Thomas, mother, Sherry, brothers, James and Jesse, and sister, Debbie, along with numerous aunts, uncles, and cousins. And whereas Daniel will always be remembered for his loyalty, dedication, service, and love for his country, and above all, he will be remembered as a hero, one who gave his life so that others may live. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the legislature is hereby requested to forward a copy of this resolution to the bereaved family. This resolution was adopted with each legislator rising in his or her place for a moment of silence.
Please be seated. You've received your copies of the Journal of Day 10, September 11th, 2012. Without exception, the journal stands approved as submitted. Tonight, there's a hearing loop in place to assist those who are hearing impaired. Anyone requiring assistance should inquire at the clerk's office.
If you have a cellular phone, pager, or other electronic device in your possession, we would request that you silence them for the duration of the meeting, and we thank you for your cooperation.
Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are in your folder. It is now my great pleasure to introduce to you tonight Mark Quinn from our Monroe County Parks Department, who will now tell us and introduce the Monroe County Plant of the Month.
Good evening. Thank you. The plant of the month this month is Calacarpa, our beauty berry. Aptly named. The berries are absolutely beautiful. They're a nice purple berry. As the leaves fall off, the berries actually remain on the plant partway through the winter. So they're really an attractive plant in the garden. They're an important food source for wildlife, particularly birds. In the summer, they flower and attract butterflies. Really nice plant in the garden. Not a good plant if you're in a deer area. The deer actually love them. From a care standpoint, they like sun to partial shade, a well-drained soil, a moist, well-drained soil. They don't want to be with their feet wet, but they do need drainage underneath them. Let's see, what else? They're particularly good winter food for deer and or birds. The animals don't eat the berries early on. They kind of wait till a little later in the season. So late season, they're very good wildlife. From a perspective of taking care of them, they're easy to care for. You really don't have to do anything. We're kind of on the northern edge of their range, so that some years in a very cold winter, they might die back to the ground. If you want good fruiting and good flowering, the best thing to do is actually cut them back in the late winter, early spring. They bloom on the new wood and get these tremendous bunches of berries that are very pretty throughout the winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. This evening, we have several proclamations scheduled. Madam Clerk.
Would Dan Mason please come forward? Also, Legislature President Jeffrey R. Adair and Michael G. Barker. Whereas Dan Mason, currently in his 18th season as the Rochester Red Wings general manager, has been awarded the title of International League Executive of the Year for his exemplary leadership, management skills, and dedication to America's favorite pastime. And whereas this year's award marks Dan's third time receiving the International League honor. Dan joined the Red Wings in 1990 and became its general manager in 1995. He has dedicated the past 23 years of his life to the love of the game and the success and happiness of his team, their fans, and our community. And whereas Dan boldly stepped up to the plate this past season when Frontier Field hosted 40 Scranton-Wilkes-Barre Yankees games and 72 Red Wings games due to major renovations that were taking place at the Yankees' home stadium. Where others may have faltered, Dan Mason has once again proven himself to be a gifted leader and a valuable asset to our community. And whereas Dan's hard work and never give up attitude clearly reflects his dedication and commitment to the success of the Rochester Red Wings and enrichment of our community. Monroe County is honored to have such a positive role model for our entire community. Now, therefore, we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, and Michael G. Barker, Vice President, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate Dan Mason for being named the International League Executive of the Year. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Dan.
Thank you very much. This recognition is something I share with everybody in our organization. One man doesn't make a successful season. It's a whole team of people, and I'm just one member of our great team that we have over at Frontier Field. Naomi Silver, Gary Larder, our board of directors, our hardworking and dedicated staff, many of whom are Monroe County natives, and all of our part-time employees who make the fan experience special at Frontier Field. Also like to acknowledge the hard work and partnership that we have with Monroe County and Jim LeBeau and his staff over at Frontier Field. They keep Frontier Field looking great. This was our 16th season at that beautiful downtown ballpark, and thanks to all of you for all your support of Frontier Field over the years and of baseball in our community. As a youngster who was born and raised where life is worth living in Webster, New York, it's really a dream come true for me to work for my hometown team. And I can't thank you all enough for all that you do to make Monroe County such a great place to live and to raise a family. Thank you very much.
Would Cindy Butterworth please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators Ted O'Brien, Carrie M. Andrews, and Joshua Broth. Whereas October is recognized as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in efforts to help prevent and educate the public on this devastating matter. 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence estimates that 1.3 million women are victims of a physical assault by an intimate partner each year. And whereas many have risen to the occasion to stand up for these victims, including Ms. Cindy Butterworth of the town of Brighton, after tragic circumstances personally affected her own life, Cindy took her strong passion and advocacy to support victims, taking the needed steps to escape the violence and reclaim their lives. And whereas, after winning a small personal victory, Cindy started a nationwide effort calling on the largest cell phone carrier, Verizon Wireless, to end the practice of charging hundreds of dollars to victims of domestic violence who are attempting to end a contract early. After over 200,000 signatures on the petition and relentless efforts, in September of this year, Cindy was contacted by Verizon and told that thanks to her work, the company realized they needed to improve their policies. And whereas Verizon Wireless has now committed to improve training for customer service representatives dealing with domestic violence victims, they have also pledged to develop a new package of policies and trainings to give representatives the ability to connect survivors with appropriate resources and programs. Cindy's efforts and success are a true example of the great impact that one person's fight can have to help so many others. Now, Therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Carrie Andrews, Assistant Democratic Leader, Ted O'Brien, Democratic Minority Leader, and Joshua Baroff, Legislator District 24, do hereby honor Cindy Butterworth for her advocacy and work to support domestic violence victims across the country. Congratulations.
I just want to thank Monroe County for recognizing my efforts. It was quite a long ordeal for me, and it's still continuing. We have a lot to do in terms of educating the public, and this Domestic Violence Awareness Month is a great place and time to start. So thank you again, everyone, for recognizing me, and education is the way to go.
We will now recess for the purpose of holding one public hearing. I declare open the public hearing on increase and improvements of the facilities of the Northwest Quadrant Pure Waters District, Northwest Quadrant, secondary clarifier improvements.
There are no speakers registered for this hearing.
There being none, I declare this public hearing closed and reconvene the October 9th, 2012 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. Tonight, there are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. At this time, we will hold public forum. Before we go to public forum tonight, I'd like to go over a few of the ground rules. Public hearing, public forum is a chance for you to get up and speak to the county legislators. I want to make sure that since we have a lot of people signed up, that we stick to the 2-minute rule. At the 2 minutes, you're going to hear a buzzer go off. When that buzzer goes off, please summarize your comments. We're going to call up 3 people at one time. The clerk will call them up. You'll go in the order that she calls them up. You'll sit, if you are one of the second ones or two, you can sit back here or stand back here so that we can make this go a little bit faster. The other part that I want to ask everybody, it is very difficult sometimes on the floor to hear some of the comments when there's applause and when there's cat calls. You're up here, please, we want to hear you, we want to hear you speak, and that detracts from our being able to do that. So tonight I'd like to do this with Cheryl. Would you please make sure that we call 3 people up, and we'll bring them up, and please try to be timely. So thank you.
Our first 3 speakers will be Joseph Hoff, to be followed by Anna Sears, and to be followed by Beth Garver Behay. Please come forward. Yes, Joseph. Joseph, yes.
Okay. The cold within. 6 humans trapped by happenstance in black and bitter cold. Each one possessed the stick of wood, or so the story's told. Their dying fire in need of logs, the first woman holds hers back, for on the faces round the fire she noticed one was black. The second, looking across the way, saw one not of his church, and couldn't bring himself to give the fire his stick of birch. The poor man sat in tattered clothes, he gave his coat a hitch. Why should his log be put to use to warm the idle rich? The rich man just thought back and thought of the wealth he had in store and how to keep what he had earned from the lazy, shiftless poor. The black man's face bespoke revenge as the fire passed from his sight, for all he saw on the stick of wood was a chance to spite the white. And the last of this forlorn group did naught except for gain. Giving only to those who gave was how he played the game. The logs held tight in death's still hands was proof of human sin. They didn't die from the cold without. They died from the cold within. Tonight, our legislators have an opportunity to step up. They have an opportunity to extinguish the cold without by illuminating others through the course of their symbolic and their substantive action. We call upon them to enact legislation, not only tonight, but in the coming days ahead, that will protect the health, welfare, and safety of the residents of Monroe County. Dutchess, Nassau, Onondaga, Ontario, Suffolk, Sullivan, Tompkins, and Ulster County have already enacted bans or prohibitions against wastewater, against the invasiveness and the destructiveness of hydrofrac drilling for natural gas. Albany, Putnam, Westchester counties are in the final stages of doing so. That's 20% of the counties in our Empire State of New York. We would love to enlist Monroe County's legislature to act accordingly, to extinguish the cold within by proactive action that will protect the health, welfare, and safety of our citizens for generations to come. Thank you. I have a CD, PDF for your attention.
Good evening, members of the legislature. I'm Anna Sears from Brighton. As co-founders of our cause, Rochesterians concerned about unsafe shale gas extraction, Nedra Harvey and I have devoted the past 2 years to raising awareness of the impacts from fracking on our community. This evening, we are here to deliver petitions calling upon the Monroe County Legislature to prohibit all fracking-related activities on properties under the county's jurisdiction. Earlier today, we delivered the same to the Executive's office. But allow me to digress a moment. Could the citizens in attendance this evening who are concerned about fracking please stand? Those of you in the legislature with your backs to the audience, could you please take a moment and note the large number of people standing behind you? These concerned citizens represent the many anti-fracking voices of Monroe County. Since April this year, our cause and many dedicated volunteers have been getting signatures on our petition, which reads, "The magnitude of New York State's upcoming decision to permit and regulate high-volume slickwater horizontal hydraulic fracturing, fracking for short, demands immediate attention and action by our county legislature to ensure self-determination and the health and safety of our community. Therefore, we, the undersigned, call upon the county to prohibit natural gas and petroleum exploration and extraction and all its ancillary activities within the county's jurisdiction in order to, 1, prevent impacts of this complex, heavy industrial activity on our quality of life, and 2, protect our health by safeguarding clean water, air, and land for generations to come." In these 346 pages of that petition, you will find over 4,000 signatures. This petition drive is one phase of ongoing citizens' campaign to bring concerns about
Please
fracking
summarize.
to your attention and to remind you that as elected officials, it is your responsibility to protect our health, safety, and welfare. Thank you.
Next up.
Fracking has shown evidence of contaminating and poisoning our air, water, and soil, making for very ill families and animal deaths, not to mention potentially causing seismic conditions from fracking into the ground. What goes into the ground comes out, same for water and same for air, although maybe it doesn't come out right away. According to various reports, fracking pollutes the air as a ground-level ozone, smog. According to many sources, most known fracking chemicals are associated with health effects on one's neurological, respiratory, endocrine, and reproductive systems. A few of these chemicals include arsenic, ammonia, chloromethane, iron, manganese. Many people living near fracking sites have reported sore throats, burning eyes, rashes, asthma conditions, breathing problems, nausea, vomiting, headaches, dizziness, tremors, and convulsions. According to many reports, fracking chemicals are associated with longer-term health effects, organ damage, cancer, stroke, diabetes, premature death. One widely known source quotes that these chemicals are suspected links to learning deficits in children and that they bioaccumulate in milk. Furthermore, sources are reporting that natural gas production may be worse for greenhouse effects than other fossil fuels because natural gas emits heat-trapping methane, and it is a methane. And it escapes into the air, and it's a potent greenhouse gas. So every time methane seeps out, it contributes to global warming. Scientists at Duke University examined 60 sites in New York and Pennsylvania and found evidence of methane contamination in household drinking water from fracking's flowback water. Today, many places are dealing with the side effects of fracking. We already have pesticides, factory farming, and so many other toxins causing illness by polluting our water, land, and air. Do we really need more? Do we really need to destroy the health of our children, our families, ourselves, our plants, our animals? In this country where our government is supposed to be looking out for our general welfare, fracking shouldn't even be a consideration. We really don't need another Love Canal on a macro scale, do we?
Our next three speakers will be Richard Gilbert, Joy Herman, and Paul Forcello.
I'm Reverend Richard Gilbert, President of Interfaith Impact of New York State, a coalition of Protestants, Reformed Jews, and Unitarian Universalists working for the common good. Some of us are old enough to remember the prophetic words of the comic Tom Lehrer, just two things of which you must beware: don't drink the water and don't breathe the air. What human beings do to the earth comes back to haunt them. Two biblical images come to mind. In Genesis, King James Version, we read, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth." We are to replenish the earth, to be good stewards. The earth is not a mine we will one day exhaust, but a garden which continually replenishes itself with a little help from responsible gardeners. Hydrofracking treats the earth as a mine. We need instead to replenish the earth by harnessing the natural powers of biomass, wind and sun, the energy sources of the future. When I think of the political struggle over hydrofracking, another biblical image comes to mind: David and Goliath. We are thousands of Davids, ordinary, concerned citizens, rendered incidental by the Goliath of the energy industry, which pours millions into New York State politics. Small communities which reject hydrofracking are taken to court by the industry. We cannot allow a single powerful industry to tell us how we shall live. We need to go beyond the bottom line. And while the temptations to grill are great because of short-term financial gain, a way of life in this environmentally sensitive area is a greater good. We are fortunate to live where we can enjoy the greatest freshwater resource in the world. Any decision to drill is irreversible. I hope and pray Tom Lehrer is wrong, and that we will be able to enjoy breathing the air and drinking the water of our beloved county for a great long time to come. So I urge the legislature to ban hydrofracking in Monroe County. Thank you.
I am Joyce Herman from Penfield. The astronauts' view of Earth from space 47 years ago offered us a dramatic shift in perspective. The Earth looked small, vulnerable, with lots of water, no borders on land or in the sea. In the economic sphere, globalization of corporations has made us realize that our country's boundaries are outdated. Anyone who does not accept this is dealing in what I would call pseudo-reality, that is, falseness masquerading as reality. Isn't it ironic that when it comes to the earth, to the air, and the water, we often make decisions as if these elements were circumscribed by artificial boundaries, as if the earth and the waters were not alive and in motion, as if there were no flow over land within the earth in the deep and shallow waters, as if they would be still and accept what we do to them and remain benign. It is pseudo-reality to believe that we can safely dump who knows what substances. Well, we don't, because the gas companies refuse to reveal them, and that they will safely stay in place. Pseudo-reality says we don't have to worry. The Halliburton loophole has decreed that hydrofracking fluids and wastewater are not to be treated as hazardous substances. That piece of pseudo-reality appears in the state's revised environmental impact statement. I hope it comes out. Pseudo-reality means buying false promises of short-term fiscal or financial gain which will lead to incalculable costs to our governments, to your health, the health of our families, those born and yet to be. Reality says our well-being is connected to everyone else's on the planet. You have only a small part to play, but please make your decisions based on the reality that what you decide
Please summarize.
has consequences. Please ban fracking in any form or anything to do with it in this county. Thank you.
Hello, I am Paul Forsella. About 14 months ago, I wrote to the Monroe County Executive's office about a concern, and to this day I have gotten no response at all. About 1 year ago, I wrote to the management of the Monroe County Legislature about a concern, and as of now, no response at all. Ignoring citizens is very poor service, and the government of Monroe County can count on the fact that I have complained to the New York State Joint Commission on Public Ethics in Albany about this poor service, and I have complained to the New York Governor's office also. You call yourselves legislators, so stop ignoring citizens and start acting as you should. And I encourage the voters to consider what I have said and vote appropriately.
Our next three speakers are Judith Cardesano, Linda Isaacson Fideli, and Hugh Mitchell. Please come forward.
Good evening, Monroe County legislators. You might think that fracking and drilling will have no impact on Monroe County, but I'm here to ask you to think again. The state's SGICE talks about developing both the Marcellus and the Utica Shale. All rules and regulations the state adopts will apply to both. Because of this, we need you to act now to protect our county before it is too late to do anything. The Utica Shale, which is already being extensively exploited in Ohio and is deep under the Marcellus, extends through Monroe County and well into Lake Ontario. In the short term, we might be okay, but in the long term, watch out, folks. If the process starts rolling in New York State, it will continue to follow its own logic and roll right over us. If we don't act now, we'll be crying tomorrow because greed has no limits. Geology.com states the Marcellus is only the first step. The second is starting in the Utica. A Norwegian company, Norse Energy, has already filed 21 permits to drill in New York's Utica Shale. In June 2002, Chesapeake Energy projected its future growth to be 100% liquids. What does this mean? It means they're reducing their emphasis on dry gas plays such as the Marcellus and refocusing on wet gas plays such as the Utica. Why? Because wet gas plays have oil, and oil brings in more money than gas. They've now refocused their attention to drilling for wet gas in the Utica in Ohio and the southwest corner of Pennsylvania. It's only a question of time before they get to us, because here we are, sitting right over the Utica. A tiny article in the DNC noted that government geologists have completed their first assessment of the Utica. They estimate high reserves of both oil and gas in the Utica. And as the article notes, the drilling industry is also paying increasing attention to the Utica. We need you to act now to develop and enforce a plan to protect Monroe County before the state promulgates its rules and regulations. If left unprotected, Monroe County could become little more than a toxic waste dump. Thank you very much.
Linda Isaacson Fideli from Parrington. 2 minutes, 2 roles I'll be speaking in tonight on fracking. First, as chairperson of the Sierra Club's Rochester Regional Group, I tell you that our 2,400 members don't want fracking or its related activities on county lands or in our facilities. That is, the county should do the following: prohibit drilling, even though it may seem unlikely to occur within our borders. Prohibit spreading of the brine byproduct on our county roads. And prohibit the, quote, treatment of fracking wastewater, as there's no proven way to remove the radioactive and carcinogenic elements. Finally, Sierra Club's #1 priority is climate change. The fact is that natural gas, when considering its life cycle from extraction through burning, is just another dirty fossil fuel that contributes to climate change. We must invest in solar, wind, and geothermal energies, not natural gas or other fossil fuels. Next, in my role as a Monroe County resident, I implore you, the legislature, to protect us from the hazards of fracking. My responsibility as a citizen is to participate in our community, working towards safety and well-being for all. My presence here tonight is just one example of that. Your responsibilities as legislators are to understand the issues, listen to your constituents, and act accordingly. Lest there be any doubt about what Monroe County residents need and want, just look around. In the last year, I have never seen so many people speaking out and taking action on an issue. Have you? When was the last time you received over 4,000 signatures on a petition? To my representative, Mr. Hanna, and to all of you, add Monroe County to the 188 other municipalities who have protected their residents. It's your duty to act in our best interests. In unmistakably large numbers, we're telling you loudly and clearly what those are.
Please summarize.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Hugh Mitchell, a member of the Executive Council of Sierra Club, and I thank you for your time. I'd particularly like to thank our Republican legislators for attending to me and my colleagues on the dangers of hydrofracking as to how it can harm our drinking water in part of Monroe County and particularly the Finger Lakes, where many communities draw their drinking water. I'd like to refer you to an important study by the Croton Watershed Coalition in Westchester County. This study concludes, after an extensive, detailed scientific look, fracking endangers water, a precious finite resource, and leaves behind toxic wastewater with no workable plans for disposal. No workable plans for disposal. High-volume hydrofracking for gas has emerged as the single greatest public health threat to New York State. Let me report and repeat. The single greatest public health threat to New York State. The fracking process generates billions of gallons of radioactive and toxic waste. How will this be disposed of? There's no practical plans in place right now. Studies have been done in 3 states that did accept some toxic waste from fracking into a few of their wastewater treatment facilities, and then they release the partially treated waste into local streams and rivers. Well, the result is a number of those rivers do provide drinking water for municipalities such as Pittsburgh. Radioactive elements were found from hydrofracking turning up in Pittsburgh drinking water, as reported in the New York Times. I'm sure you don't want that to happen here. Now, on a separate political note, basically to summarize, I'd like to ask those of you who might consider voting against a moratorium that we're asking for, how would you feel if hydrofracking proceeds and toxic pollutants do hurt our drinking water and methane pollutes the air? These are very great dangers. Thank you.
Our next 3 speakers, Ken Matheson, to be followed by Edward Gartz, to be followed by John Kastner.
My name is Ken Matheson. You've seen me here before. I'm from Scope. I represent the gun owners of Monroe County. And the good news is, this is the last time I will be here on the issue of the county parks firearms ban. There's bad news to come, and I'll get to it. I pointed out over the months that this law is unenforceable under Penal Law 400. It is invalidated under Supreme Court appellate court rulings that state that New York State is the only government entity that can regulate handguns, and you've taken no action. On September 24th, I sent a letter to Maggie Brooks telling her what our plans were, and hopefully she's informed you. But basically, I'm putting on notice tonight that if this law is not repealed or rectified to allow licensed concealed carry in the county parks by the end of the year, Scope will take legal action to rectify the situation in the courts. And you will be the first on our list of government entities that are doing the same thing. Democrats, you might want to let your friends over at the city know they're next. Okay? This is going to be done. If you don't take care of this law, we will sue you. We will win. The law is solidly on our side. The courts in the case that established the preemption awarded compensation to the petitioner. We'll ask for the same compensation. Thank you very much.
I'm next. How are y'all? I was up in front of this group here in the beginning of August, and I told you about the conditions of our Monroe County golf courses. I told you that we're losing millions of dollars because of the contract that we've put out. Not only in actual income coming in, but the taxpayers are going to be on the hook for the income that for the taxes we're going to pay to fix these things up after the contract. After that, I assure you, and interestingly enough, many members of my committee had people in this audience actually stop at their homes and say, gee, what can we do for you? Well, apparently, what you can do for me was nothing, because I didn't hear from any of you. One would think that you would have wanted to at least give me a call and say, hey, Eddie, what's up? Can we take a look at these golf courses? Are they that bad? Are you just some nutso golfer? I'm not. I'm not a nutso golfer. If you saw an article that was produced by the DNC and you saw what the gentleman at the Parks Department said and what Mr. Tyndale said, the guy that holds the contract, you would have to be dumber than a fifth grader to realize that these guys were BSing the public. Please, would you at least take the time and give me a call and just take a walk out and see that your courses are being destroyed? We had a gentleman in here from the Parks Department talking about a plant. Wow, real neat. One plant. The whole Parks Department, Durand Eastman, Churchville, Genesee Valley are being destroyed because of the contract that you guys are allowing to continue to happen. Stop it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Kastner. I live in Rochester. I'd like to address my comments as to why specifically Monroe County needs to ban high-pressure horizontal slickwater hydrofracking and the associated transport and handling of fracking wastes. The effects of these activities are not unknowns. There's a well-documented history of accidents that have harmed people, livestock, wildlife, and property in other parts of our nation, including our neighbor to the south, Pennsylvania. The hazards of this industrial process cannot be contained on site. Water supplies have contaminated 100 miles or more away from the drilling operations. Once this contamination occurs, there is no cleanup or callback. That water is gone forever. There is no safety in allowing hydrofracking in the 5-county sacrifice zone being proposed. If hydrofracking is established in New York, it will undoubtedly expand beyond these counties to others, including Monroe, which sit over the Utica Shale. This deeper layer of gas-bearing rock will require even more water and chemicals to extract. Therefore, it is imperative that Monroe County join in solidarity with the nearly 200 New York communities that have enacted or are considering outright bans of these dangerous industrial operations that pose a permanent threat to our water and our air. The more communities that reject hydrofracking, the clearer the message will be that New York is not to be destroyed for anyone's profit or convenience. Present and future generations look to us in the difficult challenges they will have to face to at least bequeath them breathable air and clean water to drink. I ask this body to please consider these points and to do the right thing. Thank you.
Our next three speakers, Katie Fittipaldi, to be followed by Joan Mullaney and Carol Barnett. Please come forward.
My name is Katie Fittipaldi, and as a lifelong resident of the beautiful state of New York, I'm here tonight to express my adamant opposition to the hydrofracturing and all its ancillary activities in Monroe County and in New York State. I'm a dedicated and caring mother of a young child, and I'm also a dedicated and caring teacher of many children in Monroe County. I highly respect all my students, and every day I do my best to provide a safe, truthful, dynamic, and fun experience for each child. As an experienced teacher, I believe that without a doubt, truly effective teaching and learning rejects the idea that the ends justifies the means. The natural gas companies want New Yorkers to view hydrofracturing narrowly through a Machiavellian lens. They want us to blindly follow their ridiculous mantra that fracking is good because it creates jobs and boosts economic growth. They don't want us to know that their dangerous means can only lead to tragic ends. But we know. Thousands of people in Monroe County know the truth. Thousands more from New York State and neighboring states like Ohio and Pennsylvania know for a fact that fracking has seriously sickened individuals, torn apart communities, and totally ruined once pristine land. We know, and we are saying no to fracking loud and clear. Members of the Monroe County Legislature, do not allow yourselves to be fooled or romanced by the natural gas industry. Give this serious issue the serious attention it deserves. Please use your legislative power to protect the land, water, and air of Monroe County by banning hydrofracking and all its ancillary activities. P.S. Here's another fact that hydrofracking companies are hoping we forget. Clean water is infinitely more precious to us than oil. But we know and we won't forget.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Joan Mullaney. I chair the Human Services Department at Monroe Community College, Damon City Campus. And I'm here to ask for your vote to enable our students to move to the Kodak site. I've worked at MCC over 40 years, although I don't look it, 20 of which at the Brighton campus and the remainder at Damon. And I want to tell you that there is a great disparity in the student experience between the two campuses. We have no cafeteria. Windows sometimes don't get washed for over 2 years. Escalators don't work. The atmosphere is non-collegiate in that many of our students, as they walk into the building and out of the building, are approached by panhandlers. We're on the 4th and 5th floor, and that's fine, but it's not the same as having our own building. A new campus would enable our workforce development to increase, our programs to grow, would give more opportunities to students to feel that this is their city campus. It would have a real cafeteria, an opportunity for handicapped students to enter the building off of a main street, and it would be a building that students could call their own. MCC has given a great deal to this community, and I hope that you will think about us and the future of our students and give them the positive experience that they deserve. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carol Barnett, and I'm one of the co-chairs of a committee in the town of Rush, which has been appointed to investigate the potential impacts of hydrofracking on our town and to advise the town on what measures to take in response. Our town has already passed a moratorium on hydrofracking. I want to talk to the legislature tonight about the devastating effects on our beautiful upstate New York landscape that would result from the heavy industrial activity that accompanies hydrofracking. The terrible loss which would result from the industrialization of our landscape is not a superficial or trivial matter. Rather, it would have dire health and economic impacts. The beauty of our countryside, of even the relatively developed areas, is an asset that must not be sacrificed for the quick enrichment of a few people at the cost of permanent damage to the community at large. That cost will be borne by homeowners whose housing values drop and who cannot obtain homeowners insurance. That cost will be borne by organic farmers, wineries, and tourist businesses who find their profits decimated when their products are tainted and no longer in demand. That cost will be borne by local municipalities that incur an unfunded mandate to pay for road repair, emergency preparedness, public health impacts, and societal costs from hydrofracking. The county must keep hydrofracking activity out of county lands, like our parks, including Mendon Ponds Park, the beautiful refuge which is practically in my backyard. It must also turn away the waste from hydrofracking, both liquid and solid, from county landfills and wastewater treatment facilities, and it must decline to use these waste products for de-icing or dust control on our county roads. To do otherwise would be a gross violation of public health standards. These waste products are dangerous, and there is no way to make them less so. Our eyes are on you, our elected officials, and we look to you to take a strong stand against hydrofracking. Thank you.
Our next three speakers, Lawrence Kuhn, to be followed by Jennifer Sherilyn and Sister Grace Miller. Please come forward. Over here, please.
Sorry. Good evening, legislators. My name is Lawrence Kuhn. My wife, my son, and I live in Parrington. Our property backs to the Erie Canal and the CSX Railroad. Although as all aspects of hydrofracking concerns me, tonight I will concentrate on fracking wastewater known as flowback brine. DEC article July 26 discussed Monroe County is considering accepting processing brine as wastewater treatment plants. Considering legislator Justin Wilcox is submitting a proposal for a moratorium on this ban of this practice, I believe the county is still investigating this process. Both of Monroe County's wastewater treatment plants, Van Leer and Northwest Quadrant, sit on Lake Ontario, where they dump treated water. Monroe County residents are supplied with tap water by Shoremont Treatment Plant, which takes the water from Lake Ontario. So those carcinogens, radioactive elements, concentrated salts cannot be adequately removed. We will be drinking them, not to mention the damage they will be caused to our life, of our lake, and the rest of the population surrounding the lake. The treatment plants already have problems of overflow when there is a large rainfall. What will happen when millions of gallons of brine are accepted? Each treatment plant infrastructure would be at great risk because of the corrosive salt concentration in brine, whether the brine is transported to the treatment plant by truck, railroad tanker, or pipeline. There's a great risk of spills. I will summarize by saying, please read the rest of the information I have on the second page of this document. Thank you.
Thank you.
This land we love so free. We're spoiling our air and water to losing gas energy. They call it hydrofracking, drilling deep for nature's gas. With hundreds of secret chemicals going down and back up with less gassed land. But the state is not protecting us from the runoffs or the sprays, filling our lungs and tummies with deadly toxic waste. Tap water's igniting now with one strike of a match. Brain damaged rural folk breathing air without a mask. Gassed land. Thank you.
I want to first of all say that I stand with all the people tonight who spoke against hydrofracking. In total agreement with you, and I wish we are successful in that fight. I want to say, first of all, that Kelly Reed promised to come to the House of Mercy to meet with some of our people who have welfare problems. And she made that promise before we had this greater publicity on the burial issue. We had many people lined up, almost 20, right, Kevin? The people did not show up, and we received no word. We were not told that nobody was coming. And we were all there waiting, and it was a great disappointment to our people. Now we're wondering, is she playing hardball? Hardball regarding the burial issue? Or is it because she wants to protect Maggie Brooks because it is election time? Well, we're telling you right now, we are going to continue to fight this issue because we need to get the money for poor people who want to be buried and don't have the money to be buried with dignity and respect. And if Maggie Brooks is upset, and not Maggie, if Kelly Reed is upset with us because we spoke out, it's unfair that she is taking it out on our people. If she doesn't like what we're saying, don't take it out on the poor. I have several questions to ask this body, especially the Republicans. How many of you have funerals with burials that cost $1,250? Of course you don't. How many of you bury your loved ones at Pottersfield, Owatka Cemetery? Just two more questions. How many of you are forced to have cremations when deep in your heart you know you cannot do it? How many of you have a free choice, burial or cremation? That's all our people are asking for. That they can have a funeral, a wake, a burial, paid for, that they do not have the money for. $3,000 is too much to be asking of our poor when all the county puts in is $1,250.
Please summarize.
Okay, I'm going to close with one quote, one piece of scripture. There was a rich man who used to dress in purple and fine linen and feast magnificently every day. And at his gate there used to be a poor man called Lazarus, covered with sores, who longed to fill himself with what fell from the rich man's table. Even dogs came and licked his sores. But now it happened that the poor man died and was carried away by the angels into Abraham's embrace. The rich man also died and was buried. Read the rest of the story in Luke chapter 16.
Our next three speakers will be John Janjan, to be followed by Audrey Newcomb and Mary Pisanti Morich.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Youngin. I live in Fairport, New York, and I'm a member of a group called the Citizens Alliance for Pristine Parenting. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about a vital issue that will affect each Monroe County resident. The list of reasons for us to ban horizontal hydrofracking is growing longer every day. Here is one more: to protect and respect Monroe County's venerable legacy of agriculture that could become a victim of this toxic industrial process. The stakes for Monroe County are high. It has a lot to lose. With its many large and smaller farms, Monroe County produces a substantial amount of the food consumed by its residents. The farmers' markets in Fairport, Brighton, Rochester, and elsewhere provide local farmers with reliable outlets for their produce. Wegmans Supermarkets takes great pride in buying fresh produce from our local farms. Community-supported agriculture, also known as CSA, farms produce organic foods that meet the most stringent standards for food crops that are pesticide and herbicide free and grown without the use of petrochemical fertilizers. The new community garden in Parenton, for example, depends on access to good, clean water and soil. Other farms in the county produce Christmas trees, lilacs, honey, berries, salad greens, rhubarb, maple. The list goes on and on. We owe this fight for guaranteed clean public water and a productive arable soil to the great agricultural legacy left to us by Monroe County agricultural pioneers like nurserymen Barry, Alwanger, and Sibley. Like them, we want to leave our future generations with the same pristine environment they left us. Monroe County Legislature has an opportunity to protect its citizens by immediately prohibiting fracking in county-owned lands.
Please summarize.
I will. And then to pass a county-wide ban with new ordinances that would ensure the continued viability of our rich agrarian tradition for future generations of Monroe County residents. Thank you.
My name is Audrey Newcomb. This is a cautionary tale. Shortly after lead, known as ethyl, was added to gasoline in 1923, the mind-dulling effects of lead began to show up in workers: disorientation, impaired judgment, and sometimes death, which the Ethyl Corporation blamed on poor work habits. A moratorium and investigation was initiated by the Surgeon General, but he succumbed to corporate pressure to approve it. Its inventor, Thomas Bridgley, is said to have poured ethyl on his hand at a press conference to confirm it was safe. Ethyl's role during the 70 years to follow was to cause a dramatic increase in serious neurological problems and incidents of violent crimes in the general population. Proven in 1965 when geochemist Dr. Claire Patterson made conclusive tests revealing that airborne lead, negligible before 1923, had climbed steadily ever since. Lead levels in 1965 were roughly 1,000 times higher than pre-1923. Patterson's work led to the Clean Air Act, but not before Ethel and DuPont tried in vain to discredit him. Today, fracking exists because the Halliburton loophole was added by oil and gas congressmen in 2005 to exempt fracking from the Clean Water Act. It's all there, folks. Toxic substances, industry influence study, moratorium, life-threatening decisions made through political shenanigans, industries rich enough and powerful enough to challenge air and water legislation, strong-arm governments, and untold amounts of money spent on media propaganda. It wouldn't take 70 years for fracking to wreck New York, not even 7. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Pizzenti Morich, and I'm a resident of Henrietta. I'm also president of the Interfaith Alliance of Rochester. First, I would like to say that the Interfaith Alliance of Rochester supports a ban on natural gas hydraulic fracturing in Monroe County for all the reasons you've heard tonight and other evenings. However, tonight I would like to speak more specifically to the issue of Monroe County accepting and treating the wastewater from hydrofracking. Although I applaud the resolution submitted by the Democrats to temporarily ban the acceptance and treatment of hydrofracking wastewater in Monroe County, I favor a permanent resolution or a permanent ban. The wastewater is salty brine containing toxic chemicals. Our sewage plants are not meant to treat this, and even if you could upgrade them, who would be paying for them? The taxpayer? Radioactive elements, including radon, come up with the wastewater. As far as I know, treatment plants cannot clean water of radioactivity. There is danger of our drinking water becoming polluted, endangering the health of our residents. The salts, methane, and toxins in the wastewater can eat away the steel in sewage treatment plants, as well as kill the bacteria that break down the sewage. Will the taxpayers have to pay for the maintenance costs? The number of trucks coming into the area will add to traffic congestion and increase wear and tear on our roads. The taxpayers will have to foot the bill for road maintenance. If there is an accident or a leak, the emergency personnel may be at risk if the chemicals within the wastewater are proprietary and consequently unknown. I urge you to reconsider and refuse to take hydrofracking wastewater for disposal in Monroe County. The risk is too great, and there are just too many unknowns. Our health is too important to put at risk.
Our next 3 speakers are Sarah Jaworski, Kevin Robinson, and Herb Woodbury.
Good evening. We are from the Mother Earth community with Spiritus Christi Church here in Rochester. Our members reside throughout Monroe County and are actively committed to our community and caring for its natural resources. We are here in support of a proposal to ban hydrofracking related activity in our county. We urge you to make it official that we will not become a dumping ground for toxic waste. Even if the lure of short-term revenue were appealing, we cannot be so short-sighted or so forgetful of the costs associated with environmental contamination as to consider risking more of it here. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been needed to clean up polluted sites like Rand Street and Kodak Park. Monroe County has already has enough pollution challenges. 46% of the waterways here were classified as impaired by pollution in their most recent inspections. We should not be allowing new sources of pollution. While Monroe County is finally reducing its pollution rates from the last decade, we are still almost triple the statewide rate in our release of toxic substances, second worst in all the counties in New York. We should not risk backsliding.
Another clear indication that we should be steering clear of the costs resulting from environmental contamination is the increasing advertising by lawyers alerting potential victims to the opportunity for litigation. They're calling hydrofracking in the Marcellus Shale the next asbestos. Please don't delay in protecting Monroe County from becoming a toxic dumping ground. Every day that prospective newcomers and businesses are left in doubt as to our commitment to developing rather than trashing our irreplaceable natural resources could be a lost opportunity as they choose to go elsewhere. Even better would be to invest in a green economy so we can see benefits like Chattanooga, Tennessee did when environmental improvements led to a new auto manufacturing plant in 2010 that brought over 2,000 jobs to that city. Green investments not only benefit existing residents, but attract visitors and new businesses looking to grow in attractive and livable cities. Toxic activities scare people and businesses away. By banning hydrofracking and any of its associated toxic activities here, we can send people and businesses in the business community a strong message that Monroe County is committed to promoting a high quality of life. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Kevin, and I happen to work at the House of Mercy. I just want to say a couple of things, actually. Something is desperately wrong at DSS. Your job is, you're in charge of taking care of the people who can't, the poorest of the poor. At times, you're taking care of us from the cradle to the grave. Now, no one wants to be cremated. That's the issue about the gravesite. But what I want to talk about is the problem I'm having at DSS. Kelly Reed's office at one time was very, actually we had an open relationship. Communication was very good as of August the 31st. But I believe we're being retaliated against based on our views and our opinions and the way we see things with you guys. And that's coming from Maggie Brooks, through Kelly Reed, through her workers, and then to us. It's not fair. I've got cases from August the 31st that we have yet had clearance on, meaning someone's dropping the ball. Now, it's easy enough to say, well, the people aren't going back doing their paperwork and all this kind of stuff, but that's wrong. The cases are there. They're just not doing it. Now, of course, I was told because they missed an appointment at the House of Mercy because they come once a month. Someone was on vacation. No one told me I was supposed to go. I got a promotion. That's not good enough for us. The job is, if someone's supposed to be at the House of Mercy once a month, they need to be at the House of Mercy once a month. Cut and dry. Now, they're charged with doing cases. Well, we do cases, and we just volunteer staff. They get paid by you and us to do their job. Now, I'm sure I'm going to hear something from Kelly Reed's office tomorrow, based on what I'm going to say about her tonight. It's wrong the way we've been penalized from our opinions in here, and particularly coming from that side of the room. And I'm sorry, I'm going to point it out, because of some of the ways that you've done with us, not fair. Now, I went to that Human Service Committee meeting, which was a sham. All you were doing was talking about creating beautification for a cemetery. That's really not what we want. We want to be dignified. We want to be buried dignified. That's all. That means the casket, viewing, calling hours. We're not asking for limos. We just want it done right. And we don't want to be at Owaka. So all I'm just telling you is give us what we need to do the job. That's all.
Our next three speakers will be Gary Mercer, to be followed by Barbara Boyce, to be followed by Jesse Lenny.
Hi, my name is Barbara Boyce. I'm from Churchville, New York. As you've already heard, this week the game changed for our county and fracking. The USGS issued a press release on October 4th, providing public information that the oil and gas industry is already known for quite some time. The Utica Shale, which lies under all of western New York, holds great promise for future gas drilling. Monroe County is now directly faced with gas drilling and all the toxic issues. Two topics deeply concern me as a county resident and especially a resident of Riga. First, protection of our open lands from becoming a storage tank for toxic chemicals and fracking flowback wastes. Over 750 chemicals are documented in the hydraulic fracturing process. Last December, at Senator Grisanti's public hearing on frack wastewater treatment, it was stated that we already have deep injection wells in western New York that the general public just doesn't know about. I do not want Monroe County to become a brick of Swiss cheese of injection wells for fracking waste. Just one storage leak could be disastrous to the land and the water, and the concern for future health risks is real. The Mill Seat landfill in Riga, where I live, has been a welcome neighbor in my town. I want strong regulations to guarantee that it does not become a landfill of frack waste. Say no to injection wells and toxic waste. My second concern is for the preservation of the quantities of our fresh water supply. Just one well, one frack uses millions of gallons of water. The numbers are well documented. The industries claim that they are advancing technology to recycle water and reduce demand is still in development and not a daily practice. We need legislation to protect our fresh watersheds, lakes, and rivers from depletion due to hydraulic fracturing practices. Now is the time for Monroe County Legislature to draft a ban on high-volume fracking operations in order to create up-to-date and binding legislation to protect and preserve the health and well-being of this county and all its citizens.
Hello, my name is Jesse Lenny. I'm the Upstate Political Director of the Working Families Party. I'm here in support of all the folks who are here speaking against fracking. People have asked, I'll be brief, people have asked me several times why, Working Families parties are advocates for hardworking families. How are we and why are we involved in what looks like a completely environmental issue? We care about clean water for sure, and we care about the environment, as I'm sure everybody does on both sides of the aisle. But this is really about an issue about jobs, and it's not about the issue. It's not about the temporary jobs that the drilling industry promises to bring that will, once the gas is out of the ground and out of the shale, will be gone. It's about the permanent jobs in industries that depend on clean water and good roads that aren't destroyed by trucks and a clean environment, including the wineries, the breweries, hospitality, tourism, and we could go on with all those industries. Those jobs are why we have lower unemployment than a lot of places that are faced with a much worse economy, and we should not be putting those industries at risk until we're absolutely sure that there's no environmental drawback. So thank you.
The next three speakers will be Jesus Johnson, Dwayne Wilder and Phyllis Korn. Please come forward. Please state your name.
Dwayne Wilder from Rochester. It's been a long evening, and I just wanted to point out that the voices that you are hearing are the voices from all over New York State. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. a couple of weeks ago wrote that 20,000 people in New York have been radicalized by the issue of hydrofracking coming to New York. Those 20,000 people are not suburbanites, mostly. They are farmers, dairyers, they are truckers, they are working people, good Republicans, some Tea Partiers, and a few Democrats. And so as you listen to these voices, I hope you understand that we are not talking partisan politics. We're not even primarily talking environmentalism. We're talking jobs. We're talking about preservation of the ability to farm the land. People's eyes turn into pie plates when they find out that the setback from their property line for a hydrofracking well would be 100 feet, because that would impact their water well that they drink from. I wanted to present tonight on the matter of whether or not we can wait to see what the DEC will do for us. I've seen this in several town meetings that I've been to, and the general consensus in some of these towns is the DEC's job is to take care of us. But the DEC's job has been badly done for these past many years. And I've got some documents to detail that. I just did.
Thank you.
Phyllis. Phyllis. Phyllis Korn.
My name is Phyllis Korn of Penfield. A couple of you may remember me from my years as Executive Director of Alternatives for Battered Women, when I came before this legislature many times. My passion then was safety of victims of domestic violence and working to reduce the violence in human relationships. My passion today is safety of our human community and reducing the violence to the environment that sustains us as humans. Only a few weeks ago, I joined the throngs in Albany who raised our voices to stop the possible harm that hydrofracking can do to our precious New York State. I carried a sign that identified me as a grandmother concerned about 7 precious grandchildren. What do you want for your children and grandchildren? We humans need clean air, pure water, and food grown on good land. You, as members of the Monroe County Legislature, have an opportunity and an obligation to protect the air, water, and land of this county in very concrete ways. Start with water. Fracking even a single shale gas well requires millions of gallons of pure water and fracking fluid and produces huge quantities of toxic wastewater. In the southern tier, where oil and gas and oil extraction have been common for decades, there is serious water contamination. How will hydrofracking impact our county's drinking water? And the air. To transport all the fluids needed to drill means hundreds of diesel trucks going to and from each well pad. The exhaust from these trucks, combined with that methane, produces ozone in the air we must breathe and the land. In Western New York, we do not have to look far for a blatant example of failing to protect our people. Remember Love Canal?
Please summarize.
You, our legislatures, have the authority to protect this county with a ban on high-volume slickwater hydrofracking and a ban on allowing treatment of the wastes from this process. For the sake of our children, I urge you to do so.
Our next three speakers will be Dr. Martin Korn, Peter Maurer, and Rita Lewis. Please come forward. Dr. Korn.
My name is Martin Korn. I'm a retired Rochester orthopedic surgeon. Monroe County has been my home since 1958, except for a couple of years when I served overseas in the U.S. Army. I am opposed to fracking until it can be proven safe and harmless to the environment and to our health. I doubt that this is possible, and this is not a political issue. The empirical observed experience with fracking is that it can produce significant pollution of water supplies as well as using the huge volumes of waters that have been cited. The wastewater recovered contains toxic chemicals and radiation. Can we responsibly dispose of these wastes, and at what cost? There is methane release, 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas, and the wells look bad, are loud, and smell bad. Do we want this in our communities? What will this do to the character and attractiveness of our communities? There are issues of heavy, large truck traffic required for fracking. Will this be an added tax burden? And only now has New York State agreed to examine the health impact of fracking. We don't even know the identity of all the hundreds of components in the fracking water brew. Many of those we do know are dangerous to human health. There are important issues affecting mortgages of land leased for fracking, which can create a default on the loan, as well as concerns about compulsory integration or forced pooling, which allow a neighbor to extract gas from nearby land which has not been leased for this purpose. I refer you to my written statement for more detailed information on these fracking matters, among others.
Please summarize.
I am also sensitive to the potential financial gains hoped for by those who wish to lease their land. This is no small matter, but we do live in a representative democracy where the potential economic benefit for a minority should not be permitted to harm the majority. Please ban fracking, or at least enact a moratorium to allow further study. Thank you.
Good evening. As Monroe County considers treating wastewater from hydrofracking, there is a question I have. Will the revenue the county receives outweigh the costs and risks of treating fracking wastewater? Treating fracking wastewater is a costly process. It has harsh chemicals and radioactive elements, so standard wastewater treatment plants aren't equipped to deal with fracking fluids. Even in facilities designed to handle fracking wastewater, ceramic membranes that are used to filter the water need to be replaced often. You could boil the mixture, separating the water and the chemicals, but that process is energy intensive and the wastewater ends up significantly shortening the life of the boilers. There's also the cost of wear and tear to our roadways as trucks that carry wastewater to the treatment plant, plus the large risk, plus the risk to large bodies of water of a spill. Trucks do crash. A spill into a lake, a pond, or even a storm drain would require costly cleanup if it could be cleaned up at all. Let me put things in perspective. We close beaches if algae gets out of control. Do we really want to risk getting this stuff in our drinking water? Even if you're not an environmentalist, treating the wastewater from fracking will end up being another costly headache. I urge you to ban treating or accepting hydrofracking wastewater in our community. Please carefully consider the real costs. Thank you.
I just want to say that I too am opposed to the fracking. I have heard the horror stories from people who do live in Pennsylvania communities where it really has damaged the water and really caused a lot of hardship for the people there. Especially the poor have been really impacted by it. And I also am lending my voice to encourage you to come up with a way to pay for compassionate funerals for our poor. We know this can be done. We know if you truly want to come up with a way to pay for the burial of poor people, you can do it. So I urge you to do the right thing, to do what is compassionate, and provide the means and the financial assistance so that people are not worried and troubled by not being able to bury their loved ones, but being forced to cremate them when this is not what they desire at all, and it causes a lot of hardship for the families. So please come up with a way to pay for the burials. Thank you.
Our next three speakers will be James Rampershan, to be followed by Deborah Gomez and Tom Gregory. Please come forward.
Well, my name is James Rampershan. I think I'm well known in our community. I talk about the dead. When you die, you no longer is a threat to our community. You're in a casket, and your loved ones bury you with dignity and pride. And so, I was listening to one of our members who's a Democrat here. She said last week we were speaking about people who bury at a Wattville cemetery. And they don't want to be buried there, but they were just put in there. And they shouldn't have been put there. So, I don't think, I think deeply when we're alive, we enjoy our prosperity of being alive. Or you can die anytime. Your heart can stop anytime. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. I do believe One time I almost died in a coma at Rochester General, but God brought me back to life, you know. And I feel pretty happy, you know. I just want a decent funeral when I die, $5,000.
Please summarize.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah?
Hi, my name is Deb Gomez, and I work at House of Mercy twice a day. Pretty much I man the phones and try to help people with services, link them up with appropriate services. I happen to have been one of the unfortunate staff who was there when the people from social services did not come the last time, when we were not given a heads up. Kevin Robinson and other volunteers and myself processed 15 to 20 applications, made arrangements to drop those off. Sometimes we kind of feel like they were left in the black hole vortex. I don't know if any of the folks who are with the Human Services Committee realize that Department of Social Services, you no longer have assigned workers. You have a customer service number. Trying to reach anybody at that number after 8:15 a.m., you're told such things such as, the system is busy, try your call again later. There's no attendant available, try your call again later. I've heard such crazy things such as, you don't qualify for food stamps because you've been to college. There's too much misinformation going on now that they have the customer service number rather than individual workers assigned to cases. Also, what's lacking is accountability. In the past, if a worker made a mistake on a client's case, the client could request a fair hearing. Along with that, if it was a particular worker that kept having the same type of mistake, there would be a notation on a reprimand in their work file. That system no longer exists with the new system of a general customer service number. Loss of paperwork is a regular thing. This might sound like real humdrum stuff to a lot of people, but I happen to be on the end of the phone where I hear someone call and say, Deb, I just got served my 72-hour eviction notice. This came from a working mother who was at House of Mercy on August 31st, submitted her application. We don't know what's happened to it. So basically, we need to have these issues addressed.
Please
and
summarize.
to know that it's done sincerely, not just paperwork being lost in a vortex. These are people who need help and qualify for it. Thank you.
Well, I'm just going to speak in favor of hydrofracking. You know, I think about that company out there in Honeywell Falls that's leaving the area. They're not leaving on an environmental issue, but everyone is pretty certain that a loss of 200 quality jobs is going to have an impact upon this county. I think the issue that's brought before by those wanting the moratorium might be premature, and the question is it appropriately brought before this county, the legislature, especially at this time? I think there was a president, unfortunately he's unpopular, but he coined the phrase the silent majority. And those are men like myself who worked 35 years in construction or drove trucks or worked in job shops or worked on roads or did all the things that might be collaterally benefited by the fact that we have a new industry coming into this area. I've heard people who advocate for the social ministries, but the question I would place before this legislature is, how are we going to pay for the programs that they want if we don't have any source of income? And one thing we know is that mining, manufacturing, and transportation are three core industries that bring a substantial tax base as well as income for our people who want to send their kids to college or see them happily married and own homes and property and all these types of things that the very industry we don't want in this state will provide our people. That silent majority, none of them are here tonight. They're probably home with their wives and families and planning on their kids going to college. And I think we need to have more of them. And that's about all I got to say on it. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Mary Ann Connolly.
Good evening. I'm Mary Ann Connolly from Brighton, and I have no statement for you. I do, however, have some questions, which I hope you, as our elected officials, will be able to answer. If fracking is essential to America's independence, why are the frackers not required to sell their gas in this country? If fracking is safe for the environment, why did it need exemptions from the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts? What amount of lethal chemical would you trust a fracking company to handle safely if it was drilling on your property? An ounce? A gallon? None? What if a tanker truck drove up with 8,000 gallons of chemicals? Enough that could kill you and everyone in your household. How will you explain to constituents explosions, spills, leaks, and waste? Why did the United States or the United Nations Human Rights Council report hydraulic fracturing for natural gas is a threat to the right of safe drinking water? Once we make our water unsafe,
Please summarize.
once we make our water unsafe, how will we make it safe again? How?
This concludes the public forum.
Members of the audience, I just want to say thank you tonight. We know we had a lot of speakers, but I want to thank you for your patience and for you sticking to the rules. So thank you tonight. At this time, we will recess the October 9th, 2012 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature for the purpose of convening the Pure Waters Administration Board for the Gates, Chile, Ogden Sewer District, the Irondequoit Bay South Central Pure Waters District, the Northwest Quadrant Pure Waters District, and the Rochester Pure Waters District. If there are no objections, I will move referral 12-0272 with one vote for each district, one vote for each district. The clerk will see to it that individual motions and resolution numbers are assigned to each district. The clerk will please note the attendance and read the items on the agenda. Folks, we're trying to do a meeting now. Hang on, Cheryl. Folks, we're trying to conduct a meeting. Thank you.
PWAB 1, referral 12-272, authorizing contract.
Moved by legislator Howland, second by legislator Yolovich. This is a motion to be adopted. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Howland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to offer the following amendment that was provided in Mr. Helfer's correspondence dated September 24th, 2012. Be it moved that referral 12-0272's specific legislative action be amended as follows. The specific legislative action required is to authorize the county executive or her designee to execute and any amendment thereto with CDM/CHA Joint Venture Powers Building 16 West Main Street, West, Suite 830, Rochester, New York, 1614, in the amount of $166,901 for professional engineering services for the Pure Waters Master Plan update.
Moved by Legislator Holland, second by Legislator Yolovich. On the amendment, is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The amendment carries. Back to the main motion. Is there any discussion further on the main motion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
PWAB 2, referral 12-274, approving.
Moved by Legislator Holland, second by Legislators Yolovich and Valerio. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Haney.
One quick question, Mr. President, through you. As I understand it, this is not literally an expansion of sewer service, as I think it was explained at the committee that the properties already have sewer service. The question I failed to ask at the committee is, how did they get the sewer service if they aren't in the district?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, these are existing sewer services and are within close proximity of the GCO district and have been able to connect in directly. They were not formally incorporated into the district themselves, and this process then therefore allow that connection to be made and have them formally within the district themselves.
Through you, Mr. President, but they've been receiving their sewage services through the district, haven't they?
Through you, Mr. President, the properties identified here in this referral have been receiving service through various agreements. Again, they're in close proximity to the district and therefore have been able to make a physical connection into the district, but the properties themselves don't physically reside within the district themselves. And they've been serviced through a variety of different arrangements over time. And through the request from the town of Chiley relative to their Department of Public Works, we took this as an opportunity to extend the district and incorporate those parcels formally into the district themselves.
So they laid their own mains that came to the boundaries of the district and connected into the district that way, things like that?
Through you, Mr. President, that is correct.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion at this time? Legislator Patterson.
Through you, are there any other properties that are going to be included in this expansion of the district?
Through you, Mr. President, only those identified in this referral.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries. We will now recess the gates, Chiley, Ogden, Irondequoit Bay, South Central, the Northwest Quadrant, and the Rochester Pure Water Districts, and adjourn the Pure Waters Administration Board. The October 9th, 2012 meeting of the Legislature is now reconvened. We will now continue with the considerations of motions, resolutions, and notice. Will the clerk please read the next item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 12-271, authorized.
Moved by Legislator Holland, second by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Please note that there was a second by Legislator Valerio. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I missed that. That was for introductory purposes only. My apology. Next item.
Oh, pardon me. Pardon me.
Cheryl? You okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Item number 2, referral 12-273, approving.
Moved by Legislator Holland, second by Legislator Valerio and Yolovich. This is for a table to motion. All in favor?
No, introductory.
This is introduction. I'm on number 2.
For introductory.
I am on 2. Give me my glasses. Where am I? I am on number 2. This is for introductory purposes only. Didn't I say that? I didn't say that? Thank you. Thank you much. Next item.
Referral, excuse me, item number 3, referral 12-273, providing that.
Moved by Legislator Holland, second by Legislator Yolovich. This is a motion to set the public hearing. All in favor?
No, it's to be tabled.
It's messed up. It's in.
Go with the agenda. Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the agenda on this. Would you like your glasses back?
No, that's.
It's going to be one of those nights. This is a tabling motion.
Yes.
All in favor? Are there any opposed? No. The item carries. Thank you very much.
Item number 4, referral 12-273, fixing public hearing.
Moved by Legislator Holland, second by Legislator Yolovich. This is to fix the public hearing, correct? Very good. Thank you. I should summarize, right? All in favor? Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 5, referral 12-275, amending 2012.
Moved by Legislator Holland, second by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 6, referral 12-275BR.
Moved by Legislator Holland, second by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion on this one at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Item number 8, referral 12-278.
Moved by Legislator Yolovich, second by Legislator Gamina. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Andrews.
I rise obviously in support of the contract that's proposed before us. I'm happy to be voting on this to settle this long-standing dispute and open contract. I just had a few questions about it before we take our vote. Through you to the administration, I just wanted to know what the number of employees were that's covered, or are that it's covered by this contract.
Through you, Mr. President, approximately 2,000.
Thank you. Through the President, under numbered paragraph 2, what would be the number of those employees that will receive the one-time 2% salary increase?
Approximately 80%, so whatever that is, 1,600.
Thank you. Paragraph 3 references cost-sharing increase that will take effect in January. Could you explain what that is?
Through you, Mr. President, there are currently 2 predominant health plans that are offered to this unit, and essentially the cost sharing will increase from 4% to 8% in one case, and from 8% to 12% in the other case. So there'll be more sharing of the burden by the employees.
Thank you. And through the President, could you just identify which plans those are?
Blue Point 2 Value, Blue Point 2 Select. Through you, Mr. President.
Thank you. On paragraph 4, it talks about for new hires effective October 1st going forward. Can you identify what is the single low-cost plan that will be available to them?
Through you, Mr. President, Blue Point 2 Value.
Thank you. And what will they pay for that premium through the President?
Through you, Mr. President, 20%.
Thank you. And then could you just further explain what changes will be made for the retiree health insurance for that group of employees or future employees?
Through you, Mr. President, for employees hired on or after October 1st, it will require 20 years of service to attain the health insurance benefit in retirement.
Thank you. And just the last question then, is that health insurance benefit full retiree coverage? Or just a single plan, or what is the benefits received after 20 years?
Through you, Mr. President, it is not restricted to single, so family is available as well for the same cost ratio.
And thank you. And just what is that cost ratio?
Through you, Mr. President, varies by date of hire. So for the new hires, it will be 20%.
Thank you very much. As I indicated before, I certainly will vote in favor and encourage my colleagues to do the same. We've all heard a lot from CSEA members over the years as this dispute continued regarding their desire to have a settled contract. So I'm pleased to see both sides were able to come to the table and resolve the issue. Certainly, as it's only going forward for another year or so, I hope that the parties are able to get back at it shortly in order to hopefully not have such a prolonged expiration between contracts after 2013. Thanks.
Is there any other discussion this time? Legislator Aldersley?
Additional second, Mr. President.
So noted. Is there any other discussion at this time? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries. Is there any unfinished business to come before us tonight? Legislator Andrews?
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe after last month's full legislature meeting, or perhaps before, I submitted a letter to the administration just asking if they could clarify what the policy is about carrying concealed weapons in this building. And I hadn't received a response yet, so I wondered through you, Mr. President, if I could ask that question now.
I believe, Legislator Andrews, that there are people here that probably could answer that for you, and at this time, I think I'm going to adjourn the meeting, so you can ask them after the meeting. How's that? Okay.
Is there any reason why they can't answer it now?
Because it's not on the agenda, and I think that there's people here that can do that.
To be fair, Mr. President, it's a letter I submitted, so it is unfinished
I've
business.
never seen the letter, so I'm not really sure what to talk about. So it's not on the agenda for unfinished business tonight.
Nothing is. That's why it's unfinished business, Mr. President.
Okay. Legislator Daniele.
Mr. President, we stand adjourned until 6 p.m. on Tuesday, November 13th, 2012.
Thank you.